Hey, it's been a minute. Sorry about that. The reason that I missed last week is partially due to the fact that I caught a cold, but is mainly due to the fact that I didn't have a lot to show for in terms of overall game progress. As you'll see in this video, the last 2 weeks have been a bit of a struggle on the programming front, but something that I've come to realize since then is that this channel was never meant to showcase how an experienced developer would make a game. It was meant to showcase my experience while making a game. A developer who doesn't always know the answers to certain bugs, or doesn't always make the most progress in a week. But if I really want to call this a documentary, then I at least owe it to show some of the struggles too. Anyway, I guess what I'm just trying to say is, from now on, I'm going to do my best to release an update every week, regardless of how much overall progress was made. And if there's anything I've learned from over this last week, it's that even something like debugging code is still a very important skill to have. The first thing I did this week was fixing the health, courtesy of this commenter. Feel free to pause if you want to read through the whole comment, but in short, the reason the health wasn't working was because I needed to be updating it every tick so that it would continuously be checking for enemies in range to deal damage, instead of just checking once at the start of the code and never again, like how it was. And with that simple fix, we now have health. The next thing, and first challenge of this week, was setting up the actual player health bar, for which I chose to follow this video, which really stuck out to me because it showed you how to make that cool damage bar effect that a lot of fighting games have, that better show how much damage was taken, and on top of that, it seemed like it would complement another mechanic that I have planned, so it felt like a perfect fit. The way it worked was by using two progress bar nodes and a timer node, with the first bar being our health and the second bar serving as a damage indicator. Whenever the scene detected we took damage via the health dropping, it would lower the health bar to whatever health we had left, and start a timer, leaving some of the damage indicator bar showing. Then, if no more damage was done by the time the timer finishes, the damage indicator would set its value to the current health. Simple enough, right? Well, the problem came with setting up the health in the player scene, where I encountered an old friend. Unfortunately for me, this was a little more difficult to solve though, because it couldn't be the same problem that I had last time because it was already in the function. But wait a minute, null instance could mean invalid path, or that the value is coming up null. So maybe I just need to update the variable in the function? Nope, that didn't work either. I also tried moving the health bar to the function and creating a separate ready function in case the problem had to do with the health bar not being loaded yet, but no dice. So I decided to put a pin in it and move on to the next thing. And this next thing was probably my weirdest experience in coding so far. And all I was doing was implementing a wall. While testing the game, I would sometimes get annoyed because enemies would push me out of the play area, and I wouldn't be able to find my way back, so I decided that it was finally time to expand the player area and add walls to stop this from happening. And this should have been easy, since all you have to do to make a wall in Godot is select what tiles you want to serve as walls and then assign them a layer. So imagine my surprise when I do this and suddenly my gun detection doesn't work anymore. It gets even stranger when you consider that the way my gun detection works, it is only supposed to grab overlapping bodies, meaning character bodies, not tiles. The gun shouldn't even know that the wall exists, but it's the wall's fault, and I know it because when I unassign their layer, it works fine again. So anyway, I spent the next 3 days trying to figure out why it was detecting the walls, trying to reroute the gun and enemies to the second layer, which is where they're supposed to be, which for some reason also really did not want to work, leaving some people in a game debbing Discord server that I'm in absolutely dumbfounded at how I ended up in a situation like this, breaking the game even more, and then eventually just reverting everything back to the way it was because at least it kind of worked compared to whatever this is. In the end, the gun detection did work a bit better. Granted, it's still a bit quirky, but after all that, I yet again decided to put a pin in it and come back later. So I now have 2 parts that I want to go back to. Did I go back and start fixing the health after that? Hell no. We started working on something else. Yippee! The last thing that I tried to work on was creating the first half of an XP system, meaning a system that would drop experience when an enemy died. I chose this because I thought I might know a way to do it. The way I was going to do it was basically copy part of my gun code and then replace the shoot marker 2D node with a drop point 2D node in the center of the enemy, so that when the enemy died, I can call the position of that marker and then drop the XP. But unfortunately, there was some error with the timing because Q3 was also in the function, and for some reason, the marker 2D node would try and grab the position of the enemy after it was dead, despite it coming first in the order of operations, which would cause the game to crash when an enemy died. So that was a bust. After that, I once again sought help from the Council of Discord and learned something new about a system I had never used before: signals. I knew about signals before, but one thing that I learned about them was that they could be used to move data. Now that may not sound important, but what that means for this is instead of having the XP drop on the marker, I can instead have a function to emit a signal with the position of where the enemy was when it died, and then I can set up a separate function to catch the signal and then drop the XP. So I wouldn't be doing all of it in the same function that deletes it. So I set it all up, and nothing. The game wasn't crashing, but no enemies were spawning. At this point, I was pretty done, and considering that at this point in time, it was 3 p.m. on Saturday, I didn't really have much time left to work on it if I didn't want to risk the video not being ready in time. Editor's note here, never do that again. But I didn't really want to quit just yet, so I opted to at least try and figure out which part of the code was broken. And this is the part where I get into my big real takeaway from this week, which was debugging. Up until this point, I had seriously underestimated how much valuable information you could get by simply adding something as small as a print statement on the end of a function. And in fact, it was through that method that I learned that my signal code was working perfectly. I was even able to print the positions of the enemies that were dying. And wow, did finding that out improve my morale. I was starting to fear that I would walk out of this week with only failures to show for it. But seeing at least one thing I worked on work the way it should, without breaking anything else, it was a win for me. And yeah, that's pretty much all I did for this week. I know there wasn't a ton of overall game progress made since the last episode, but I still learned a lot this week. And as I'm writing this script, I think I might know how to fix 2 of the problems that came up in the video. So next week, I'll hopefully be able to fix everything up and then finally start working on the menus. Once again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys on Monday. Peace.